This is another video I've been planning for a while, and that's because I've not seen anything really in depth looking at the differences between the Nina and the Delia. I'm calling it the Delia. I think a guy from Melbourne Instruments I've seen on a video calls it the Delia, but in the UK we've got a chef called Delia Smith. So Delia, it's got to be for me, otherwise my mind will just get completely and utterly frazzled. But yeah, I've not seen anything demoing the two synths next to each other, showing the differences in the fully digital Delia and the Nina, which has got analog discrete VCOs in them. So there's loads of specs online, you can read all the specs, but you can't actually hear what they sound like and what the difference is. And before I start, I have to point out that these are two serious bits of kit. When I first saw them, I did think, probably like a bit like a lot of you, I was a little bit skeptical. I was like, are they gonna be an average synth with some cheap motorized faders as a sort of as a gimmick, as a selling point? But in both cases, I couldn't have been further from the truth. They're both really well thought out, detailed, excellent bits of kit, and the motorized faders are quite stunning. I do have another video where I dig into the motorized faders and show what they do, how they work, and that they're rated for about 50 million cycles, I think, which are calculated at over 100 years of abuse. And not only do they update their position when you load in a new preset, but they're also useful for lots of other things as well. Like if we go into the modulation mode, for example, and we look at EG1, so envelope generator 1, we can see what each of the sources is modulating, the amount the knobs turned. Clockwise is positive modulation, anti-clockwise is negative modulation. Come down and do the same on this. If we look at the LFOs, we can see where all the modulation. Again, these are the sources and these are the destinations. So from a usability perspective, understanding what's going on in your patch and being able to program them, they're really, I can't really describe how much of a revelation it was to use them. And also each of the knobs doesn't have to just be or act like a potentiometer. Looking at the tuning, for example, we've got a maximum that it pulls you back from and a minimum it pulls you back from, it springs back. And then we've got a central indent there. So if we look at the tuning on this, for example, let's go into the oscillator tuning. Let's go to oscillator 2. You can see we always stop at 0. It's hard to show, but there is an indent you can feel. But if I go to coarse tuning, you can see it clicks. So it's like a switch now. If we go to load in some patches, for example, it clicks through each of them. If we went to edit something, it's now smooth, and you can see as I'm turning this, that's moving there. And what that all means is it's a genuinely user-friendly interface. And what they've done with the Delia is they've sort of taken all the best bits of the Nina, they've refined it, they've made it lighter, they've made it all digital, and they've refined the user interface and put extra bits and bobs in there, almost like a version 2 of the Nina, but a digital version 2 of the Nina. So although you've got less knobs on the front, actually it doesn't really matter, because go to VCF, VCA or auxiliary, let's come out modulation. You can see that's the VCF envelope, VCA envelope, auxiliary envelope. You don't actually have to have all the knobs on the front panel. It makes no difference whatsoever. In fact, you've got to hit one of those buttons to do it. And on top of that, every patch has got 2 patches in it. Look at this, we've got a morph between 1 and 2. So in each patch, you can save an A and a B, and this morph knob morphs between them, and you can see all the parameters that are changing between 1 and 2 there, or A and B. And all that knobby stuff would be okay if it was on an okay synth, but because it's on a really good synth, it just makes it a pleasure to use both of these. Feels like when they made the Nina, they threw everything at it. VCOs, CV control at the back we've got there. We've got super powerful motors. These are much harder to click. I say much harder, but there's much more resistance in that than there is in this, for example. It's a lot lighter to use. And with Delia, they've learned the lessons from that. They've made it into a more streamlined, but more importantly, a much more cost-effective synth. So what's the reason for that difference in price, and is it worth it? The layout's quite different, but at the heart of it's the same sort of synth. We've got 3 oscillators there. We've got 1, 2, 3 and 4 on this, but the 4th that's on this is down here on the noise. We can have different types of noise. We've got noise type XOR. That's like the ring mod on the MS-20. So it's not exactly ring mod, but it sort of acts like ring mod when you're just using pulses. Won't go into that here, but effectively you've got ring mod on here, plus you've got pink noise and you've got an auxiliary in. And if we come to oscillator 4 on this, oscillator 4, we've got the type. So we've got XOR, got external 1, external 2. We've got a loop that takes the audio out, puts it back into the audio in, a bit like the little trick on the mini mode people used to use. So you had the sort of saturation circuit where you took the headphone out and you put it back in again. Do the same on this. Plus we've got noise, but we don't have the choice of pink or white. Oscillators 1 and 2 give us the saw, triangle and the pulse. Oscillator 3 gives us wavetables. We've got room for 120 wavetables in there, each with 2048 long samples, so really detailed stuff. And again, we've got the 4th oscillator. I should also mention the wonderful addition of FM on the Delia. Start with a beautiful tone. And I'm going to add some FM to that. So we go to modulation, oscillator 2 to modulate oscillator 1. I'll do that again, that was nice, that. That's FM anyway. That's rather wonderful, isn't it? But you don't get FM on the Nina. Moving over to the filter though, on the Nina we've got a single resonant low pass. On the Delia we've got the resonant low pass that can be 24 dB or 12 dB, plus we've got a digital high pass. So analog low pass, digital high pass, link them together and you've got yourself a band pass. So far very similar on the specs there, but moving over to modulation, we've got 3 LFOs on the Delia, plus we've got 3 envelopes. On the Nina we've just got 2 LFOs and the 2 envelopes. So Delia starts to take the lead there. Plus in the effects, we've got effects 1 and effects 2, and they can both act on the same tone. Whereas on Nina, we've just got a single effect send. And then taking into account, you've got 12 full voices on the Nina, and they're all discrete analog circuitry. And this is why this thing weighs half a ton. On the Delia, you've only got 6 full voices, but you do have a 12-note paraphonic mode. It's not quite paraphonic. It takes 2 notes and puts them through the same filter, but they've both got 2 VCAs per voice to do this sort of magic panning and spinning that they do. But yeah, 12 VCOs on the Nina versus 6 virtual analogs on the Delia. So I think that's where the big price difference comes in, and the motors feel a little bit stronger, as I say, a bit sturdier on the Nina, although on the Delia they're just as good, but probably a bit over-spec'd on the Nina. Or maybe they've just developed smaller, more efficient ones now, which I think is probably more likely to be the case, especially when you look at the power consumption. The power supply for the Nina is about 3 times the size as the power unit for the Delia. From a hardware perspective, the Nina's got 2 full stereo outputs plus 4 inputs, which you can use for CV control. The Delia only has a single stereo out and no CV inputs, but does retain the audio input for oscillator 4, and they can both act as a USB host using standard USB connectors, so you can plug in a keyboard or controllers directly to the synth itself. And they both feel very solid, aluminium end panels, metal bodies, but yeah, Nina feels a bit heavier than Delia, but they both feel like premium bits of kit. I'm not sure about this one in green, much prefer that one in red. And if you don't like the white, you can. If we go into this, exit there, go into the system, global settings, enter. We can change the color to orange, blue, purple, or green. But for the sake of trying to see it on the camera, we'll leave it in white. This is the bit I'm guessing you've tuned in for though. Starting at the very top end then, you can hear a little bit of aliasing up here on the Delia. And the Nina seems a bit bright, but you can definitely hear some aliasing there. And as we go down the keyboard, the Nina becomes less bright, which is weird. Big difference there. Let's go down another octave. So you're keeping that top end. So I think as we go through this, you'll find that most of the differences are due to the filters rather than the actual oscillators. Although the big difference in the oscillators is that you do get the aliasing on the top end. It's not awful. It's definitely there. Yeah. And if we come to this one, much cleaner. But if we look at the tuning on the Nina, it goes out of tune over the full octave range. Although it's not today. So that's analog VCOs for you. What's that? Minus a little bit to minus 14, whereas yesterday that was going to like a quarter of a semitone out, or half a semitone out, or no, quarter of a semitone out, 25 cents. Whereas this obviously is bang on, the Delia. So that's the big difference. If we look at the wave shapes as well, we come from triangle through to a saw, through to a square. There's a little indent actually on the sawtooth there, so you can stop it bang on, but there isn't for the square, which would be nice. So to get it bang on a square, you've got to play with it a little bit. And then over on the Nina, it's slightly different. In that, you've got the choice of the triangle through to the sawtooth, and then the shape of that, so it kills it to a little buzz. But if we're in triangle, it takes it to a square. So they both act in different ways, but you get all the basic analog tones from it. Wavetable is effectively exactly the same. If we come to 3, in fact, if we go to wave, we've got all these 80s wavetables in there. If we just listen to oscillator 3, so turn oscillator 3 up, turn oscillator 1 down. And if we go back to the wave, have a look what we've got in there. These are the 80s waves, and I'm sort of convinced, although I've not gone through them, that they look like, this is how geeky I can be on this stuff, they look like the PPG waves. They're called 80s waves. If this sounds like a resonance of sort of science of resonance, that's what it is. Let's have a look. So, are we on the position? Where we are? So, got to find where the, oh, up here position. Yeah. And if the next one takes it from there, but further on, we're definitely in that. Let's go to the wave again. Yeah, I think these are the PPG waves. There's 33 of them in total. 31, 32. Yeah. So that's what the 80s means. Got the same in the Nina. So no point in going over that. What is more interesting than just the raw waves on their own, I guess, is actually creating a tone with them. So if I go to load, LFO pad 2, load that one. I've done a little bit of prep for this. LFO pad 2, load. So just two sources. So doing sounds that you might actually use. Always getting differences in volumes between them. And that's much brighter because the filter's brighter at that end. As I say, I'm not using any filter tracking on it. I'll just double check that again. Yeah, 0 filter tracking, only oscillator 1, oscillator 2, and oscillator 3. And again on this one, filter tracking. And this is why I've not taken one preset from one and matched it on the other, because it's just impossible to get it spot on. So we'll go back to this. I can't match them directly, but it is interesting that the Delia sounds much, much brighter, almost like you'd say harsher up here. You'll notice I got the resonance completely down there, so we're not really listening to the filter, just the oscillators. So with the two oscillators there, you can, there's differences in the tuning. On the VCOs on the Nina, I keep on getting myself really confused because this is the lower keyboard, but that's the higher synth. So when I play this with the Nina, you get slight differences, as you might expect, in the tuning of the VCAs. So. And that's why you get the beat in between them sometimes, but I have offset them both exactly the same at 16, is it? Thereabouts. So I put them with 20 cents. Do the same on this. Put that exactly 20 cents. And actually that's pretty close. Maybe yesterday was a hotter day, but this was definitely getting lots of different results from the VCOs on that yesterday. So these are spectacularly close now compared to what I was getting yesterday. But every time I pressed the key, it was getting different beat-ins because the tuning of the various oscillators was out. Not out in a terrible way. But the way you'd expect from a VCO. Listening to the beating. And it is very similar. I'm shocked now because yesterday I had this whole thing to talk about and now I can't really. It's a bit weird. On this, if we go into patch, we do have a vintage mode, which I've got on at the minute. So if we just take oscillator 2 off for a second. That's oscillator 1 on its own, no effects. Now add the vintage mode. It's playing with the tuning of the oscillators. It's not doing anything to the filter, because they are analog anyway. Or the envelopes, as far as I can tell. So it's like an oscillator slot rather than the whole machine slot. Where the sequential Prophet 5's got that vintage mode, hasn't it? It's not the same as the vintage mode in the Prophet 5. It doesn't make one of the voices completely mental. It just detunes the oscillators until they're out of tune. So if you had oscillator 2, you'd be taking that in for calibration now, wouldn't you? So around 20 feels fine. We've got little spidery friends joined me. Go away so they don't squish you. So overall then, I mean, I'm only playing the sawtooth here. I'm not going to go through all the different wave shapes here. Overall then, you do get aliasing at the top end on the Delia, but if you're in the wavetable mode, you might quite like that because it might sound exactly like an old 80s vintage wavetable synth, but it is a great little wavetable synth. For the pure analog tones though, it is there. Let's just have it so that we can hear one and then the other, shall we? Slightly different, isn't it, again? I wouldn't discount the Delia just because of the oscillators, is what I'm trying to get across here. We do have a 12 voice mode in it as well. So if we come out of here, is it 12 mode? It is there, 12 note mode off. We can edit that. And we've got different ways of adding the 12 notes. Based on time or based on difference across the keyboards for these different oscillators, and it's pretty good. If we play an 8-note chord, let's put it on that. There's 8 notes. Can I play a 10-note chord maybe? There's 10 notes off a 6-voice synth. So it can be done, but you can't get, well, you're not going to get, if you've got like 12 big, long, you heard a little something there, and that's because they're all using, well, they're using pairs on the VCF, so 2 voices into 1 VCF, so. Tends to work fine, but if you're gonna do anything with the VCF and some attack on the VCF, for example. Slow it down. In fact, it's difficult to make it not work. Longer releases. That's pretty good, isn't it? That's sounding like a 12 voice, and there's things that you might be able to hear in there every now and then, but overall, it's a very, very clever type of paraphonic on steroids. Next up then, the filter, and this is where I find most of the differences, to be honest. I'll start off with the low pass then, and don't forget the low pass on the Delia is analog like it is on the Nina. The Nina has got a fully analog signal path. Obviously the Delia doesn't, because it's a hybrid, it's got digital oscillators. But as we go higher up, like we saw earlier, the Nina is a bit brighter. It's a bit more of a top end roll off on the Delia, but as we come down the keys, the Delia ends up being the brighter one, which is weird. But as I say, there's no key tracking on it. And if I do increase the sustain on this and envelope and generator level, it's not doing anything. Just in case anyone asks, have you checked? Yes, I have. So yeah, Delia sounds a lot brighter, and it's also got much more resonance. If I bring the resonance in, try and do something like this. Let's replicate that on the Nina. Nearly. If I whack the resonance up as high as it'll go on the Nina. Ah, wrong keyboard. We're on top resonance on the Nina. Now this is going to get very spiky. There we go. So you're getting much more resonance on the Delia. And if I whack this up, so I'm going to turn the volume down. We'll do what it is. Just turn it down just in case you've got your headphones on or something, or the limiter. I'll only go to there, but you get the idea with that, hopefully. With this. That's the big difference in the sound I'm getting overall. And you may have noticed there, I'll bring the cutoff up. Resonance. We're not getting a huge drop in volume. Getting some. But on the Delia, much bigger drop there. I'll just bring that down as well. And this is why I couldn't really match patch for patch to get them identical or as close as, because there are these differences. And just to show you this, the Nina doesn't have the 12 dB. You lose volume again, but that's the resonance on full. Could do with a little bit more resonance in there if they could. And the cutoff isn't the same as on a 24, as in, it's a different value when you go to the 12. So, what's the cutoff there? Probably about, I don't know, just under 6. Put it onto the 24. It's on 7. You get the idea. Let's go to the high pass just to show you it really, because the Nina doesn't have one. It's a digital high pass, not that that makes much difference. So I have a band pass there with 2 peaks. So loads of lovely little things you can do with that. Maybe I should just mention tracking, because the tracking isn't perfect on either of them, just if you were wondering, so take that link off. With a cutoff, key tracking on 100. Doesn't quite do it. And up on this one, if we put the resonance on full, we'll go to modulation, keyboard, filter tracking on full, right, modulation, turn oscillator 1 down. Bit more musical, but it's not quite 100% tracking. And then we got the overdrive on these as well. Very quickly play you that. the drive. That's almost like a bandpass, isn't it? Amazing stuff out of that. We have got a drive circuit on the Delia as well. And you can hear the little click as it kicks in from sort of like a drive to an overdrive or whatever it's doing there. I'm not quite sure. They do mention that in the manual, so I think it goes into like sort of a separate mode. So slightly different from the overdrive and drive perspective, but they both go into that sort of dirty, nasty, really gritty, grungy territory. So really, I think I've showed everything I was going to show. The oscillators, the filters, and the drive, they're the main things that give it the tones, obviously. So there you have it, the Nina versus the Delia. Which one is best for you? It really depends on what you like. It does feel like overall the Delia has got more things in it. The Nina has got more voices. It's got those analog voices. The Delia does have some high-pitched aliasing. If you're listening to notes that high, I tend not to. Overall though, it does feel like the Delia is a version 2 of the Nina. It's taken the ideas and it's improved on them. It's made it slicker, it's made it sleeker, it's made it more, well, there's more in there, but the Nina does have a certain something. Those VCOs, I think they do give a certain quality to it. Or is it just a different quality because we've got the different filters on the two of them? Either way, you're gonna save a lot of money with the Delia. Well, I hope you found that useful. If you did, as always, click subscribe, ring the bell, join me over on Patreon. If you're going to buy one of these, click on one of the affiliate links because it does help to support the channel. Share the love, and I will see you next time. Thanks very much for staying to the very end.